our big crowd. Tony, we're good when you are.
Lindsay, calm it down over there.
Okay.
Jinx.
So I'm going to call our workshop to order. It is 5 o'clock. And I need a motion to approve the agenda for the June 18th board workshop meeting. Brian?
Second.
Rich? All in favor? Aye. And we're all here, 7-0.
I'll share the mic.
Maybe we can share a mic.
Well, welcome to June,
Yeah.
right? And it's just been great listening to all the board members talk about their experiences, no matter where their child or children are along the continuum. So it's been a lot of joy and you're experiencing it. And I'm really excited to speak tonight. First off the bat, school improvement, our early college COSER opportunity. Dr. Wilson's going to come up and start having a conversation. But the reason why I like this in substance, it really gives all of our students an opportunity to access high quality curriculum, and it's also done in a fiscally responsible way. So it checks many boxes for us, and I know that that's important. Opportunities and access, but also fiscal responsibility and maximizing BOCES aid. So without further ado, Dr. T.
Hi, everyone. I have a presentation if you want to throw that up there for me, Superintendent Provenzano. Do you mind if I grab a clicker?
Yeah, you want to drive?
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, so Jeremy and I alluded to this COSER the other day. I think at our last board meeting, we talked a little bit about it. So here it is in all of its beautiful glory. So before I get started on the COSER, we currently partner with 4 institutes of higher education, or as we will refer to them tonight, IHEs. We love an acronym. So we partner right now with MCC, GCC, SUNY Oswego, and Syracuse University. And we actually offer 17 different courses. It actually is 20, because I didn't count the Spanish, German, and French for 2 courses each. So we actually offer 20 dual credit courses in Fairport, which is wild. So if you think about what that means, so this is just dual credit. So that means kids are enrolled in high school and in a college course at the same time. This is not AP at all. So we're not talking AP courses with this COSER at all. So we offer 20 different dual credit courses across the gamut of content areas too. So you see sports management, to health, to personal business and law, to world languages, personal finance, everything under the sun. There's something there for anybody. That could equal for our students close to 3,500 credits. That is a lot of credits. So if you think about, most of those courses are 3 to 4 credits each, times 20 courses, or 20 different offerings, times however many sections we offer. That's a lot of credits that exist. And so New York State is really passionate about making sure that kids have access and equity to all of these courses and opportunities as they're getting ready for college. And so Monroe to BOCES, so that's the other side of the county, the west side, but we work with Monroe to BOCES, has an early college COSER. It's called COSER 5680. And Jeremy, if someone said to you, what's a COSER? What would you say? I did. Yeah, I just whispered to him. I might throw you a bone here.
COSERs is how BOCES is organized. So similar to school districts, we're organized by codes. They're organized by COSERs. So they can create a COSER if more than one school has an interest in that service or that product. So then we subscribe to that COSER. There's usually a base fee associated with it, which is usually minor. And then there's the service that goes along with it. So usually with other BOCES, there might be an admin fee associated with it. With Monroe 2 BOCES, there's no admin fee. It's just a straight Arwada cost for the admin fee, and you do get aid on that as well. And the base fee, I'm sorry, not the admin fee, the base fee for that. So the COSER is just their way of organizing what the service is, so they know how to bill it and where to bill it, what function code to bill it under.
Jeremy, what's an Arwada?
That's our residential weighted average daily attendance. So it's one of those formulas. Ours is 5,583. It's one of those formulas that is actually dictated and also factors in our enrollment. So that's how a lot of BOCES and a lot of aid is going to be developed. It's a heavily weighted aspect of the foundation aid formula, and also BOCES will bill us based on our Arwada as well. So yeah, resident weighted average daily attendance.
And Jeremy, on a COSER, what's the percentage of aid that we get on?
About 65 to 68, depending on the year.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. So now that we got the technical terms out of the way, so Monroe 2 BOCES, this COSER, this 5860 COSER, is a partnership with the IHEs so that we can offer credits in college to families at no cost to families at all. And really, no cost to districts in the long run. There is an upfront cost. I'll go into that in a second. But the goals of the program are to remove those financial barriers. College credits for about 3 credit hours can cost, depending on which institution you're partnering with, anywhere between $250 for 3 credit hours up to closer to $400 for 3 credit hours in the ones that we're partnering with right now. So that adds up quickly if you have kids that are taking more than one course or overtime, or you have more than one child in high school. That adds up very, very quickly. The other goal is to grow that dual enrollment. And so although we offer 20 different courses right now, we would love to see more. And so New York State would love us to do that as well. And then providing those college and career readiness resources to students from the start. And so you might be thinking, well, what if my kid doesn't want to go to college? We still think that it's a great thing to take those upper level courses. The rigor and the exposure to college courses is really important no matter what your path is in life. I'm going to put you on the spot too, Mallory. Have you taken any dual credit courses yet?
I took keyboarding
Mm-hmm.
in 9th grade, and then I haven't taken any SUPAs. I'm taking SUPA Econ next year though, and then you can choose for AP Bio if you want to take AP or SUPA. So I'll take one of those.
One
two.
of those two.
Yeah.
Yep. And SUPA is our partnership with Syracuse University. So that's that one. So as early as 9th grade, our students can start accruing college credits, which help with transferring and offsetting that cost in the future. So our responsibilities as a district would be to recruit and enroll students into our courses, and we're doing a wonderful job at that already. Staffing our courses with approved teachers. Sometimes there's training that needs to go with those. There's very specific requirements from each of the IHEs to make sure the teachers are qualified to teach those. And then we communicate with the families, monitor student readiness, and then we provide our data to the BOCES. The BOCES then works with us to facilitate all the agreements with the IHEs. Right now, the way that works is we do that individually with the 4 institutes that we're partnering with, but BOCES will become that mediator or the go-between for us to make those things happen quickly. Coordinate with the aid with our business offices, so I'll be working really closely with Jeremy on this. And then they're gonna lead a regional advisory committee to try to improve those resources and sharing. There's dual credit courses that we didn't even know existed until we sat down with BOCES the other day. So there's lots more opportunities that could exist for our students. And so every time you join a consortium, you get access to all of the great things that exist. Go ahead, yeah.
So would this be, like, we would be keeping the same courses we have right now, or we'd have to be switching to different?
Nope,
Okay.
right now. So we would keep all the same courses we have right now as long as there continues to be student interest in those courses. But we might look at adding additional courses or perhaps shifting from one course to another depending on the changing world that we're living in
But
right
it's
now.
not asking staff to learn new
Nope,
coursework or, okay.
nope. We can pick up exactly what we're doing currently and do it again next year.
That's what made it so lucrative to us, because we're doing it, right? And I would want to, doing it, maximize the aid and give the students the opportunity.
And then there's responsibilities for our families and students as well. So the families would still need to finish that paperwork for the IHE. We can't do that part for you. So families would have to make sure those are in on time. And the teachers are very good in the counseling department, very good at making sure, you know, if you're going to get your college credits, you got to turn this in. This is when it's due. The families and students need to commit to that coursework, because if we're going to front the cost for the college credit, we need you to say, like, I'm all in all the way through, and then communicate with the team if there's any challenges. When we sat with our BOCES group to talk about potentially how we would enter this coaster, one of the things they suggested was, well, why don't you look at the pass rate of your courses? So I did. Can you imagine what they are? Over 95%. Kids that take the courses pass the courses. And so this really is not asking for much more than we're already asking for. And so what would happen, so I kind of alluded to this, that there is a financial implication for us to buy into the program. So the COSER has the potential to generate revenue for the school district. That's not the purpose, but it does have potential to generate revenue, and I'm going to tell you how. After we buy in after 1 year, we can recoup some of that money. So we buy into the COSER. It would cost us about $9,500 to buy in, and so that's what Jeremy was talking about with the ARWADA and the base service fee. And then we also pay the upfront tuition fees for the students. So instead of Mallory's parents writing the check to SUPA, to Syracuse, we would be the ones that would be writing that check through the BOCES consortium. And like I said, it's anywhere between 198 to 360 per course, and it depends on how many credits and which institute you're working with. So that's the upfront cost. So why would we do that? Well, the BOCES then allows us to get aid on those tuitions that we're paying. So if we pay $300 for your tuition to go to a SUPA course, we get aid back on that. We also get aid on our teacher salaries. And this is where the potential revenue comes in, because we already have the teachers, they're already certified, we're already teaching the courses, the kids are already taking them. So by buying into this COSER, we can get back from BOCES aid on, it's almost like cross-contracting with our teachers in the institution, almost, right? So this next year, the cap is for $50,000 of the salary is aidable. So almost all of our teachers, especially teachers of these courses, are making more than $50,000. So depending on how many sections they teach, we can get aid on those sections. So I'll use Dave Domenico, for example. I think all of his courses are dual credit courses. 1.0, I'm looking at Bob just to make sure. All of his courses are dual credit courses. So if we bought into the COSER, said all of Dave Domenico's courses potentially are going to be under this, then we could get $50,000 back on Dave's salary, because 1.0 of his salary teaches that dual credit course. The following year, that'll increase to $60,000, and I would imagine that that's probably going to grow incrementally over time. I don't know what that would look like, but Jeremy, do you?
The 60,000? So it was capped at 30,000 for probably 20 years.
So you think maybe not?
We got really lucky for them going to 40,000, 50, and 60. My guess is it'll stay there, but who knows?
Who knows? I mean, everything's going up. And then if there's any costs that are accrued to credential our teachers, like for example, we had a teacher that had to go get extra credentialing last year for a super course, that we could get that aided back. So we could get money back on that as well. So I'll give you a for example for our math folks in the room. This is just for funsies. This is not a real course. This is nothing real. But if we had a course that was 25 students, at MCC, so the 3-credit course will be $272 per student, so you're going to be multiplying that 272 times the 25 kids. The prorated FTE, so this means this is a semester course, so the teacher teaches 0.1. So it's a half-year course, 0.1 of their job is a dual credit course. So if you look at our new district costs, $6,800 for the tuition, that's 25 times the 272. The BOCES fee is $1,700, that's tuition plus your FTE. Then you have so you add those up, that's your total new cost. Then as Jeremy mentioned, we get aid back on that cost. Right now it's 65% on our expenditures. So then we would get aid back, that's $5,545. So net new cost would be $3,000 in this example. Well, we're already paying the teacher's salary, so that's not a new cost. So there's the $5,000. And then we would get aid on that FTE, so that's existing on his salary, so $3,235. We would get back the difference, $210. So on this course, the district would realize $210. This is one course, 25 kids, a semester course, so it's a small little number. But that's how the math works. It's a little bit of moving money around and getting aid back. Jeremy, do you want to add anything to that description?
Depending on the courses, and that's what Tanya has been doing a great job with this, depending on the courses that you start with, it is a moneymaker. So the first year there will be an upfront cost that I'm sure we'll get to. But after that, it is an aid generator just because of the percent of salaries that you can now run through. So just remember now, we're paying those salaries and not getting a dime back in BOCES aid.
Right.
Once you start getting that BOCES aid back, it's actually a revenue generator for most districts.
So what is the reason that we haven't done this in the past? Is it mostly because of that salary piece, or?
This is brand new as of this coming year.
Yeah, we will be on the second wave. So this started downstate. There's a COSER that already exists downstate, so some people have been doing in that. I think in our region, Penfield may have already bought into this COSER last year, and then almost everybody's going in now.
Well, we're early adopters. We were just talking about it last week on our superintendent's table, and there's many people, like, we're jumping in, which is great because we're trying to take advantage of giving more opportunities for students and also maximizing the aid, which the upfront cost, where does that come from, right? And that's end of the year fund balance. That's money that we allocate that we have, and it's allocated at the end of the year, instead of sending it to facilities or doing a parking lot or, we all saw that list, right? We would reprioritize some of the academic pieces here, as Dr. T and Jeremy were talking about. So as we get closer to that year-end fund balance, I'll be communicating with the board so you're well aware what those steps are.
So some of the work, if I could just explain a little bit of the background work, and then I'll tell you what the plan kind of that we have depending on the balance that Brett gives us. So Jeremy, Bob, myself, and Francine Newtown as the lead counselor have gone through our current enrollments from last year. We costed it all out, looked at what aid we would get back. And so I have a 3 to 5 year plan for us to roll this out at just the upfront cost this year, and then every year from that using the money that would be generated to add more courses on, so that we would always be making money and not losing money as we go through this process. Because some of our courses, as Jeremy was saying, cost more than others. So some of those don't generate any income. We would actually lose a little bit of money, but we don't want to leave those off the table because it's still about access and equity. And so we would take the revenue generated each year and roll that into the same fund to add on another layer of courses. So what you'll see, instead of us saying all 20 of these courses next year would be part of the COSER. We'll buy in for some of those courses for next year with a rollout plan for the following year.
So before we commit to it, though, we need to make sure that the fund balance is where it is to where we can afford it. And then, again, the board will be put at the forefront of that to see how that balances the priorities that occur at the end of the year. But this is a great opportunity because it is an academic one, right? And I think that's something that we're all about.
So the upfront cost that we're talking about looking at fund
About
balance.
10 grand.
But the 9,500 or whatever,
Yep.
and then that's
Plus
a one
tuition.
time, plus the tuition. That 10 grand. That's
Yep.
a one time
Yep.
buy-in to the go.
You do it each year.
Yeah, the 10,000 is every year. Yep.
But the eight's long.
Yep. And I'm getting way ahead of myself.
You're okay.
But no, is this we would buy into this year by year,
Yep.
so that if we do it and we realize, oh, this is not working for us, then we're not
Yep.
locked in.
That's why we want to do it step by step and not do an all in one shot deal. And I like the approach of meeting with the high school decision makers to sort of see which ones would be fiscally responsible, but also meet the needs of our kids at the same time, and then grow it in a thoughtful way in as much as we possibly can.
So once we know potential fund balance, and Brett says, after he's speaking with you, Tanya, you have X amount of dollars, then I'll come back with a recommendation of which courses we would put through this if that's the direction we choose to go.
And then whichever courses we start with, those families will see those savings right away.
Right away. They would
Okay,
not
so
write a
we have the
check
upfront cost, but they pretty much get the savings right
Yeah.
away.
immediately. Yep.
And then, sorry, I was a little
Yeah, you're
confused.
okay.
So it sounded like this is a new option for
Yep.
this year, but then I thought you said that some schools adopted last year?
Yeah, I believe Penfield got in last year. We've been talking about it as a district for a little while, but it was very muddy and murky, and we didn't really understand all the pieces. Now that some more downstate schools have gotten in on it, and Penfield's gone through the process, we feel really confident. We've got an aid calculator that's been set up by BOCES. We're able to sit with our numbers and plug, well, what if we only do these 3 courses? Okay, that'll cost us this much money. What if we only do this one course? It'll cost us
It'll
this
be
much
interesting
money.
as we develop pathways in the future.
Yeah,
how-
so this all aligns with the New York State Inspires and the Pathways to Graduation, and our regulation that we put out about access to dual credit courses and AP courses. So it's all aligned with some of the work that we've already been doing. It really ends up being a wonderful gift to families, all families that are part of Fairport, and then also potential money generator for the district.
I think there was a presentation at the conference where downstate schools were
Yep.
talking about it. I can look, and yeah, but I think it was mainly downstate that
Yep.
was trying it out.
Yep.
Lots of success with it, it sounded like. And it is a lot of money for families if your kid is taking it. So
Yeah.
I think it will be very helpful, but did you want to say something? Did you go to that
We
one?
went to that one together,
Yes.
so I remember
I-
that presentation, and the kids were like graduating with like a 2-year degree.
Yeah.
So it was amazing.
It was, and it
Really
just,
amazing.
Yeah, and they were able to like do other things that they wanted to do as well, and just the cost savings with college. I know we have so many here, so many. Natalie would have been a junior in college next year. So many of her friends, or this coming year, are graduated a year early because they had so many credits,
Yeah.
which helps, especially if you're going to go on for extra. You were there.
I think
We
it's a
went
great
to
way
that
to
together.
use end-year fund balance in a way that's different than what we've used in the past. I mean, you're actually giving it back to the kids, which we always give it back, but this will be directly in a way that we haven't done so in the past. So this looks like a great opportunity.
Yeah, and then the way that we're planning to do it, it would fund itself in the future. So it's fund balance year one, and then it would fund itself in the future.
So it sounds like families save money,
Yep.
it funds itself, and we potentially generate revenue from it. How does it stay financially viable? Like,
State,
The state.
the state's on
the
That
state's
aid.
prepared to have a flood of,
Another point of advocacy, right?
yeah. So the state is prepared to have, they obviously know how good this must look for districts, so they're prepared to have a flood of districts coming into this.
Yeah,
program.
yeah.
Again, the first couple of years here, there's not as much traction. And I bet within 5 years, everybody would be doing this because
Yeah, I guess what would be the reason not to do it?
The only reason not to do it would be the upfront cost from fund balance, and if you don't have a fund balance, then you would
How do you,
be,
how do you
that's
come up with
true.
that?
Yeah.
right.
Got it.
And so that's the only reason we haven't come with a specific plan, just because I want to see what
See
fund
what's in
balance
fund
is
balance.
and
Okay.
see how much we're willing to commit year one, and then we'll go from there.
So Tanya, as you look at the list of things that we offer now for dual, how do you choose which ones you are going to include in that first
Yep.
year so that you don't leave anybody
Yeah,
out?
so what
or-
I've done is I've done spreadsheets for each one of our partnerships. So we've got MCC, GCC, Syracuse, and SUNY Oswego, and put in how many kids, what credit hours cost for each one of those, run all the formulas to see then what would the net aid or net revenue be back for us on that, what's the upfront cost, then the net revenue. I send an email off to Bob, Jeremy, and Brett saying, these are the 3 scenarios. I recommend this one, depending on what our fund balance is to start, because some of them do generate more revenue than others, and we want to get that bank big enough to continue to keep growing it.
Is there, because I'm not a math person,
Mm-hmm.
is there a point, like if we have a big rush, we announce these 3 classes are going to have no charge and we have a bunch more kids join, is that financially advantageous, or does it hit a point where now we're going to be less profitable because we have too many kids signing up for it?
Sure, yeah, we haven't gone that far down the analysis road.
Okay.
We offer what we offer based on staffing and course requests, so I would say that potentially course requests could drive up that offering, but most of these are electives, and so there's only going to be so many sections we're going to be able to offer when you're looking at everything else. Kids need to graduate. Bob, do you want to add
I
anything
would
to
just
that?
add, I assume that next January, December, it'll be a selling point
Yeah.
from the business teachers to their returning students
Yeah.
and their incoming students as an avenue to a 2-year degree or whatever the case may be. And so in that context, as well as like the conversations around financial literacy and some of those things,
Mhm.
I think it's a huge boom to our business department, the
Yeah.
strength of it long term. The bigger challenge would be more on staffing.
Mhm.
And then I'm assuming that we're not allowed to do this, but is it possible to charge families like a smaller amount to help offset the initial part?
No, that's part of the agreement, is you're not allowed to charge a dime to your families, because I was going to
assume, yeah.
say that, because I know we have families that would be willing to do that, or financially able to do that, and that is part of the agreement, is that you don't charge anything for your students.
Stay tuned.
All right, thank you,
Excellent.
everyone.
Thank you very
Great
much.
update.
Very interesting.
She's been dying to get at this with you guys, so.
Kind of reading this like this. sounds too good to be
It
true.
is. I know, where's the trap door?
Where's the catch?
New York.
Well, talk about too good to be true. We got a building condition survey conversation.
I have high hopes here.
Quite the segue there,
It's a
sir.
little wobbly if the
Yeah.
kid is taken care of.
I didn't see that over the summer.
I'm so glad I don't
So
have it.
can you also get no cost stuff for our students plus fund,
Revenue.
potential revenue?
BCS is aidable at the building aid ratio, so that's about as good as I can get.
But it still comes at a cost. So I do apologize there. All right, so this is just a status update. Thank you, sir. Okay. So this is just a status update of where we're currently at in the BCS. In the fall, we're anticipating any time between October and December, we're going to come back with the actual full-blown presentation that I know Labella did 5 years ago, in addition to a 5-year capital plan. So when we do the BCS, that stands for Building Condition Survey, and is something that is required every 5 years. Schools have to do it. It used to be that all schools did the BCS at the exact same time, which then leads schools to do capital projects around the exact same time, which floods the market and makes it difficult for people to bid. So what they did in 2020 is they actually changed it so that everybody wasn't doing the BCS on the same 5-year cycle. We actually kept on our cycle, but I know some schools actually got delayed till 2024, and then they do it in 2029. But we are still on the same cycle. So in this presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about policy 5630. I know we like making sure that we're taking care of our policies, and this one relates directly to the building condition survey. We're going to review some of the requirements around the BCS, talk about the process and what has been done so far, our goals and what our future aspirations are for the next 6 months, 5 to 6 months. Talk about any correlation between the BCS and how we get to our capital improvement process or projects, and then any next steps that we have. So starting off, again, the BCS is a required tool that has to be done every 5 years. It is a large upfront cost. It's actually a square foot cost, and then districts have that upfront cost that they have to anticipate in their budget, and then they get aid on it the following year as building aid. So this is something that we got through with year-end fund balance at the end of the 24-25 school year to purchase and finish out in the 25-26 school year. There's going to be some residual payments in 26-27, but we already secured the funding for it. From this BCS, which is a big pile of work that needs to be done at all your buildings. So the building condition survey is work that is done at every student and staff occupied building. So it even takes into consideration Bomber Place, transportation, and district office, in addition to our school buildings as well. From this BCS, we take all that information and we try to put together a 5-year plan. Now again, usually your capital projects are anywhere from 2 to 5 years apart, so by the time you're starting to build the second project, you're on to the next BCS. But a lot of times this stuff rolls over. Year over year, you see the same things on the BCS. Our goal is to try to tackle items on the BCS. So we do that through year-end purchasing. We also look to do that whenever we do a capital improvement process or project. So again, we try to create that 5-year plan, and then with that, board reports will be given every so often just to know where we're at in the process. And you're going to see as we talk about a capital project plan that we have for the next 20 years, kind of how we're going to dive into that as well. So again, moving forward here, it's mandated. It is not a choice. Ours we had to do in 2025, and the deadline was March 1st, 2026. This is a very elaborate process. We're going to see on the next page kind of how many questions there are that go into this building condition survey. I am happy to report that we hit the March 1st deadline, so no issues there. It is a report that Labella helps us submit to the state through the state portal, and it's something that we have to certify as a district. And again, it is used to evaluate the physical condition of facilities. It is also used to identify any health, safety, and structural issues. Support capital project planning and budgeting. Everything should go based off of the BCS. And here's the reason why. If you have to replace something and you try to do an emergency capital project, which we'll talk about, if the state says it's been on your building condition survey for 20 years and you've never addressed it, they're probably not going to aid it. So they want you to take care of those issues that are on the BCS and not just focus on the flashy items and updating your classroom. So you got to have a little bit of that in the capital project, right? That's what sells. But at the same time, you got to take care of your infrastructure. And I think we do a tremendous job of that. This is an example right here. It shows you questions going up to 76. So this is just an example of some of the different questions that we have to answer. We reviewed old survey information from prior BCSs. We look at some major reconstruction, useful life, accessibility, so that could be ADA compliance. So again, whenever we look to do a renovation, we have to make sure it's ADA compliant. And then SED requirement submissions, we have to make sure that we talk about the cost, life expectancy, all that goes into the BCS and what gets submitted to the state. This is, so there is a working document. There's an executive summary, which is kind of this building condition survey is mammoth. It is really large, very tedious. A lot of it is something that facilities people understands. I'm glad Aaron's sitting in the stands today. He knows what all that stuff is. It's going to have a lot of that technical facilities jargon in there. So we get an executive summary, and then from that, we actually meet with stakeholders, which is principals, administrators, and different people to actually put together a 5-year capital project plan. And that's what's actually taking place over the next few months. So then in the fall, we can present that 5-year capital plan. So we do the BCS, we get all the updates. You'll see many people walk our buildings and facilities, from ME Engineering to Labella. Campus helps out a little bit as well. They put together all this information, and then from that, we talk with our stakeholders to put a 5-year capital project plan together. We tried to go one step further, as we're talking about with the next presentation, try to do a 20-year plan. But we always want to make sure we know when our vote dates are, so we know what we're going to anticipate, and that's all based on debt drop-off, which we know what it is right now. We always like to celebrate our wins. So here's some of the scope from the BCS that's included in the K-8 project. Fire alarm, PA system, pneumatic controls with digital controls, paving reconstruction. We're doing some paving also in the 2023 project. We're actually adding a road, paving an existing tennis courts, kitchen, cafeteria remodel at JA, classroom reconstruction, toilet room reconstruction. That's happening a lot, especially at Brooks Hill, which we're going to make some of those classrooms also ADA compliant, which we're staying within the state threshold. You have to have so many rooms per wing, and that's what we're doing with the ADA compliance there. Interior renovations, whether it's a library at Northside Dudley. There's a lot of different things that we're doing that is part of the BCS work. And also air conditioning. It is one of the district's scopes that whenever we touch a space, we want to put air conditioning into it. It's just the way the world is working, but do remember that we did try to see what the quote would be if we put air conditioning in all our buildings. I think it was over $120 million. That's no maintenance cost. That you probably have to hire more facilities people to maintain those air conditioners and all that, all the rooftop units and everything that goes into it. I'm sure Aaron is nodding behind me as I say that. In addition, that's not even including the electric costs that are going to increase due to the air conditioning. So 120 million just puts the infrastructure in, and we got that quote about a year ago. I bet you that's at 125 million now just with inflation. Potential future projects. This is something that we want to put together because we know our vote dates. We want to kind of know what we're looking at. I heard that there's a swimming pool that might need renovation here at the high school. So something that we've been looking at for many, many years that I've been brought on board with through the superintendent and prior business official. High school music wing renovations. I know that was part of the 2022 project that unfortunately went down. So just something that when we're looking at the pool that's kind of north of that gymnasium, do we throw in the music wing with it? Not saying we're going to, just those are options that we have. Air conditioning. Again, even if you're not going to air condition all your buildings, you're still going to air condition the spaces in which you try to renovate. Library renovations, kitchen and cafeteria renovations. Although we're doing a big one at JA, we do have 7, soon to be 6 other schools that we do have to renovate the cafeteria and make sure that it's functioning for our kids. And again, when you think of a project every 5 years, you're already getting to 30 years if you do one cafeteria every project. And things are not made today like they used to. You ever hear that? You put something in, a rooftop unit that was installed in 1966, I think that's accurate, is still working today. You put one in today, it's going to last 30 years. It's just the way the world works. So again, next steps, understanding and prioritizing the BCS. This is something I've already had a couple meetings with our owner architect and campus construction to discuss. We organize that scope by priority. We meet with internal stakeholders, create a list of potential projects, and then we put a long-range plan together.
So, MC, ready? I know you're going to go right into the organizational focus areas. So in October, November, December, we'll be bringing that to the board. We'll be chunking it. Jeremy said it is a complex document that's bundles and bundles high. So we will, just like we've done in the past, I remember some board members might have been on, when we will take it by grade band and do it in a methodical way so the board understands what the priorities are, actually have a voice and say in ensuring that, that's what you see too, because you go to buildings and observe and assess buildings too. So that's going to be in the near future.
Yes. And again, we always have to take into consideration maximum cost allowances when we do that. We're going to talk about that a little bit in the next presentation, but that's the maximum cost that the state will aid per building every 5 years. So that goes into our decision-making process too. When you think, okay, this project that we're doing right now takes place at the high school, our next project, we might not be able to focus it at the high school if it's within that 5-year time frame. So just something that we work out.
Any questions on the BCS? It sort of rolls into a draft, and I'm underscoring the word draft, 15-year plan. Again, much more conversations need to be had, and you'll see that we'll be bringing this back to the board again for discussion in August as we start the school year. So we'll give you some time to sit with it. But Jeremy's put some time together to put together some costs and some recommendations for our 15-year plan, just so you can sort of see what one looks like. Obviously, again, I want to underscore draft.
Awesome. Thank you.
Does Jeremy have to stay there?
He's going to stay right up there.
I know.
He's changing. He's changing.
Trying to hide for the night.
He's changing.
Wasn't sure where you were going. Was
Changing
getting a little
modes.
nervous. Thought we were gonna have Aaron do it.
All right. So capital projects are always based on a drop-off and debt drop-off, right? You want to make sure that stays level. So when you're thinking about capital projects, we know based on our borrowings when debt is going to drop off the books for almost every project that we have except for the ones that are currently ongoing. We can project, so we might be off a year or two depending on when the debt starts and the aid starts, but we pretty much know what's going to happen. So from that, we want to put a plan together because we know the vote dates. We know when, based on the construction that we have, based on the size of the project, based on an early aid start that we can ask for, that we'll get into, all that good stuff. When can we vote on these projects, and what could the size of those projects be? Again, we have to plan. We have to know how much money do we want to put away every year in the capital reserve. Is it zero? Is it $1 million? Is it 500,000? We don't know. So when you put this plan together, it really puts it into perspective what you need to do what size of a project. So we're going to start off with building aid units. So building aid units are actually what's used to calculate your maximum cost allowance. And it's not based on your pupils. A lot of people think that it's based on your student enrollment. It's actually based on the number of classrooms you have and spaces you have in the district. So they serve as a mechanism to determine how much you can do in a capital project and get aided on by the state. These building aid units change a little bit. So BAUs vary by space and grade level. They assign the BAU values depending on how a room is utilized and the grade level. So different grade levels have different weights, similar to our WADA formula. Grades 7 through 12 have a different weight than grades K through 6. That's why it's not just simply your enrollment, it's based on a formula. Yeah, gym spaces. You can have so many, you get so many credits for so many gym spaces, and our gym is a little bit bigger than what they allow, so you get so many aid units for that space, based on what it is, not just based on the size of it. So the building aid units are calculated, and when you talk about how it's factored in every year, so school districts plan a project, they look at their BAUs, which generates the MCAs, the maximum cost allowances. So to calculate the BAUs, you do the square footage in the rooms, and that's are evaluated to sum up the total BAUs for the building. It's based on building because maximum cost allowances are based on the actual building, not based on the district. So Brooks Hill BAUs are calculated separately from Jefferson Avenue's BAUs. They apply a cost index, which changes quite, I think it changed twice this year alone. So again, the total BAUs are multiplied by regional and New York State cost index, which adjusts for changing construction costs and geographic market rates. No wonder why it's already changed twice this year. Look at what's going on in the world. They determine the maximum cost allowance. And then they apply the building aid ratio, which again changes year to year. It doesn't change by much. And that's why when I said our BOCES aid ratio is 65 to 68%. 2 years ago it was 67.7%. This year we're estimating 66, 65 and a half. It all depends based on a formula. Same thing with building aid. Now it's not going to go from 70% to 30%, but it might go from 75% to 74% to 77%. It jumps around.
Jeremy, is that with that number fluctuating? Is it based on when we do the work or when we actually pay the debt for the work, or like how does
Great
that
question.
fit in?
Yeah, it's actually based on, the aid is based on the debt that you paid the prior year.
Okay.
So whatever debt I pay this year, I get the building aid for next year at the percentage that it is in the current year.
Like at the moment that you submit for it?
Yep. Understanding maximum cost allowances. So maximum cost allowances are allowable aid limits that if stayed within, the district receives aid on. They are broken into 2 categories. The first category is construction. Simple enough. It's all the work that goes into any capital project. Anytime you're putting a shovel in the ground, you're tearing down a wall, all that is based on construction. Then you have incidentals, which is your architect expenses, your construction manager expenses, your fiscal advisor expenses, all the stuff that's not related to construction. And a lot of times, though, that incidental work also covers your site work. Site work is exterior, playgrounds. So a lot of times you hear you want to renovate a playground. That falls under the incidentals, unfortunately. There's no way we can change that. It just is what it is. Any construction or incidental work that exceeds those maximum cost allowances, you get no aid. And that is why with the track project, there was a cost to the taxpayer because we went over the maximum cost allowances. And it's based on SED approval date. So when you have your maximum cost allowances, let's say it's $20 million. You vote on a project and you're going to use 15 million of it. You have 5 million left. That 15 million will get recycled 5 years after the date of SED approval. So you know how we had to do 2 phases on the K8 project? The reason is because Jefferson Ave, and I believe it was Northside, either Northside or Dudley, and that's why we coupled them together because they're combined. They didn't have their maximum cost allowances reset until 2027. So we couldn't submit them to SED and get approval in 2026, or a lot of that work wouldn't have been aided. So that goes into all the planning that we have financial advisors for, our construction managers are on top of that, the architects, and also myself. Because we want to make sure that we're maximizing that aid. When we look at future capital projects, what we are recommending is a 15-year rolling cycle. And this is to create educational equity. The first project, also when you do a project, I'll just state another reason why we think this is a good idea. When you do a capital project, a lot of times different buildings will have different SED account numbers. The more SED account numbers you have, the chances of those SED account numbers not being over $5 million. When you have that issue and a project is not over $5 million, you cannot ask for an early aid start. So if the project takes a little bit longer than anticipated, that's what happens sometimes with capital projects, you cannot ask for an early aid start, therefore your debt is not going to align with your aid. So we try to minimize how many different project numbers we have. So first project would be recommended to focus on our K-5 buildings, the 4 buildings that we have. The second project, more of a 6-8, which is 2 buildings. And a third project is a 9-12, which is 2 buildings, but do remember that one of them will not be getting aid, and that is Minerva. Something that we're working on with our architects is, can we get some maximum cost allowances and some BAUs based on the BOCES students? We haven't gotten the yes yet, but I'm not giving up on that. Hopefully we can utilize some of those students to actually generate some aid for Minerva.
Sorry, just to be clear, Minerva doesn't get building aid units because there's no students, Fairport students in the building.
Yes, but what we're arguing is that there is BOCES students in there, and I do know of a nearby district that did get some maximum cost allowances and some BAUs for the BOCES program. It was a little bit different, so we're not giving up on it, but the good thing is we don't have any work in Minerva right now.
Air conditioning in a room, right? Like, for example, the cafeteria, right?
Yep.
We're going to be maximizing aid because there's kids, they're using it. So there's some natural efficiencies that we can gain just by them doing work at our school, which is a good thing.
But just in general, like any work we do at Minerva, it does not get state aid. I
As of
appreciate
right
hearing,
now?
As
of right now, that is the
So right
correct
now,
assumption.
we're making ways for a makerspace and where the technology rooms are at Minerva. That is completely unaidable.
Yeah.
A caveat to this plan, and you saw it with our K-8 project that we did, the proposition also included some work at Minerva and the high school. The reason that's smart to do is because we can't anticipate what issues are going to happen. The K-8 project is going to run through December of 2029. We might have a roof go bad at one of those schools in that time. You might have a boiler that needs fixing. So you want to make sure that you include those other schools on the proposition. So in case an emergency does happen, you can use some project money on that school. So a caveat to the plan, let's say if we move forward with this and we're doing a K-5 project. A caveat might be you might be doing a boiler at JP. You might be doing a roof at the high school. So you want to leave it open to address those health and safety and BCS items that could be failing at another school. Maximizing state building aid. So again, the New York State offers building aid for regular operating capital projects. And capital projects allow districts to access these restricted funds to complete larger scale infrastructure work efficiently. So again, we do get building aid on capital project work up to our maximum cost allowances. And with that, if there is anything that's not aided, that's why we factor that into the initial projection of the project. So every project that we do has an aid assumption of 95%. We are always assuming in any project that we do, 5% of it is not going to be aided to make sure that we're cautious when we're doing a project, because not everything is aided when you do a capital improvement project. Also, tax levy stability. We want to make sure that our debt and our aid stays flat so that we're not seeing wild swings in our tax cap formula. One of the exclusions to the tax cap formula compares your debt to your aid. If you have wild swings, you have debt drop off without the aid, or you have aid without the debt, it's going to fluctuate that number, and that's going to drive wild swings in your tax cap, and it's not going to be stable for the long term. So we want to make sure that when debt is falling off the books, it is being replaced. When aid is falling off the books, it is being replaced. Most projects are aided over 15 years. The reason you'll see the -30 there is sometimes when you do reconstruction, you can ask to have that aided over 30 years. We did not do that with the STEM edition because it is not a new build technically. They look at that more when you're building a brand new school, just because it's a higher cost, so you can ask for a little bit longer of an aid and a debt payoff with that. Future capital projects. So this is what we have right now assumed for future, recommended, I should say, for future capital projects. All of these would have zero additional cost to the taxpayer. The first one, talk about the pool project. In order to do the pool project in 2029, right now we are making an assumption. That assumption is based on, we do have a local district in Monroe County that is going out for a pool, and it's roughly $54 million. When you factor in inflation, because this pool will not be completed if you vote on it in 2029, it would probably not be completed until 2032 or 2033. And when you also factor in some other work that can be done around those areas, we are projecting a $75 million cost. Could be less than that, could be a little bit more than that. I think that's a fair estimate. In order to spend $75 million on the project and have no additional tax burden to the community, you need $26.35 million in the capital reserve to pay for that. Right now, we have about $6 million. So if we vote on it, you have to have the money in the capital reserve by the time you vote on the project. So that leaves us about, you got June of 26, 27, 28, and 29. You have 4 years to fund it, which means you need to put $5 million away every year. That is also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm jumping the gun again probably, but it says target aidability 90%, and I know that's
Yes.
above our usual like 70, in the mid-70s.
So, great question. So that target aidability, that's actually what I stated at the 95%. That's how much of the project we think is going to be aided. That's not our building aid ratio. This is factoring in our building aid ratio of what it currently is.
So that's saying that 90% of the project can get the 70-something% of
You
the
got it.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
The reason we dropped it down to 90% instead of the 95 is because the original pool that they had constructed, this is again just high level, went outside the original footprint of the school. Usually when you go outside the footprint of the school, they don't aid it on how much is going outside. I did see the original drawing. There's a sliver that goes outside. So working with our financial advisors and our architect, we think coming down to 90% is fair. It could be more. Let's say we talk to SED and they're able to aid it at 95 or 100%. That means we can have less come out of our capital reserve to afford the same project. But we're trying to be very strategic and also very cautious because we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, right? So right now, we are considering not only the pool, but if you think of everything north of the pool. So you're going to have those health classrooms, you're going to have the, what do you call them, locker rooms. So that's why I'm anticipating a little bit more than what the current project is going out for that local school. Any questions on the 2029 project? This would be an estimated timeline. Because that project is going to be greater than $5 million, chances are it's going to be 1 or 2 codes if you specialize just the pool area. We can request an early aid start. That is very important. Otherwise, we'd have to back everything up, and talking to our financial advisors, that'd be very difficult to make sure because the vote date depends on maximum cost allowances. There are some maximum cost allowances based on the spend down project that we're doing here at the high school that are not going to become available once we get to 2029 because that's less than 5 years away. All goes into our minds when we're considering this. So this would call for a vote in the fall of 29. It would call for architect and user group design from October to July of 2030. I got to double check these dates. I'm like, man, we're already talking about 2030. SED submission would be right around July of 2030, which is similar to the same time frame we had for the KE project, just so everybody knows. SED approval, we are anticipating in December. Procurement and bidding would happen over the next few months, so we would start construction in the spring of 2031, and we are anticipating for the pool that would take about 2.5 years. SED believes that all projects should be based on 18 months. That's when the early aid start comes in. For projects that are bigger in size, which this one is, you can request an early aid start as long as it's over $5 million. So it doesn't matter how long construction takes, you can request that early aid start to match up with the debt. So there's no issue with that. Final cost reports will be issued in 2033, but again, we would request early aid start in probably 2032, and then it would be completed. The next project would be recommended a 2032 6 through 8 project. For a $20 million project, we need $5 million in a capital reserve. You're going to see a theme here going at $5 million in a capital reserve. How much could that afford us in each project? So again, you're going to see that targeted aidability at 95%, no additional cost to the taxpayer. That's about $8 million to $8.5 million that you can spend at each school. Because again, there's only 2 schools with this. The rest of the money is the incidental cost, the architect, the construction manager, the unsuitable soils that we might encounter. You never know. But again, it gets us to that $7 to $9 million mark that can happen at work at each school, which is significant. We're not getting that in the K-8 project because there's just so many buildings.
Jeremy, so I understand the timing because of the way that the aid units fall off. So say we get to that point where it's 2032 and we don't have $5 million in the capital reserve. In your mind, is that okay, we're going to hold off a little bit and wait until we have $5 million, or is that we do a smaller project to keep on our 5-year tempo?
That's why this is always.
I mean, I know it's like up in the air, but kind of.
No, but it's a good question because things change, and I think you start with the best case scenario.
Absolutely.
And when you write it down, you have to like get to that place, and that's when we talk about strategic planning, rebooting. And if this is still a community priority, when we do talk about end of the year fund balances and building reserves, all that matters, right? But if we're not able to achieve that 100%, that's not a $20 million project. It becomes whatever, $10 million.
Or it has to have a tax impact, right?
Yes. So your first priority more is like keeping the pacing of the projects more than like making it a minimum level size project before we would pull the trigger.
I think the first priority is the board coalescing around what the expectations of the community are, right? And I think, and I think Rich sort of started going there. Like, do they have an appetite for sharing the cost or adding additional cost, or do we need to be prudent and continue to go at no additional cost like we have been doing through the years? So I think that's part of the orchestra.
Yeah, all part of the
Yeah, that's
conversation.
kind of how I think about the capital reserve and the local share in a similar way. Like this money needs to be used to fund the project. If we have it in the capital reserve, great. If not, we have to go to the community and talk to them and say, here's why we want to do this, and then they have to vote to pay for it. So
I know you've talked, Rich, before about also trying to keep in mind if we wait too long to do capital improvement projects, then the
benefiting?
people are paying in are not the ones who are
So
benefiting.
spoiler
so trying to
alert,
keep that.
when we talk about our strategic plan, our next iteration of it, there's an operational side of this, which is facilities planning. And there's parts of this work that are gonna have us go back next year to the community and talk to them, hey, is this what we still want? Is this still our expectation? And we're gonna hopefully get a large sample size like we did in 2017. We had close to 5,000 pieces of data to carry us this forward. So I'm excited to jump into that work, but I think we need to hear from more people.
And that was, dating back to 2018, and as long as I've been on the board, that was the point of the three big projects that we've done, 3 to 4 projects that we did, was to kind of basically catch up and then get on this rolling scale of smaller scale projects. Not that the pool is a smaller scale project, but the smaller scale kind of rolling updates rather than waiting years till we have to do the massive thing. But obviously, environments change, so yeah.
Lisa, to answer your question, these are the conversations that are gonna happen when we have to make that decision. So I can't even answer that now. That'll be a group decision at that time, but these are exactly the conversations that are gonna be happening in 2032.
My family loves how I like to think years in advance.
Yeah.
And try to
Well, and I
predict
said-
I like it.
sorry, go ahead. Erin.
No, I said to Brett, my positive thinking, what if we, get a large donation? Could it be spent? Go
it
ahead,
aside.
Rich.
No, this is helpful for me because it just makes it very clear what does it look like to be able to move ahead with this, right? It's 26 million. Are we going to have that in surplus to put in reserve realistically over the next few years, given all the revenue pressure and everything else, expenses? If we do, it's nice to see that there's a way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This number definitely might need to adjust, right? But I'm also excited to get a pulse from the community to see where they are, particularly the pool community, our elementary community, and as we continue to consolidate next year, where their appetite is.
I won't go through the timeline. It's similar. It's the same thing that you just saw there.
I do have one question on that. While we're
Absolutely.
looking way far in the future, on your 2038 slide, your
Oh, boy.
targeted aidability dropped to 80%. Any particular
Yes.
reason for that?
Absolutely, because it'd be a 912 project. That factors in Minerva not getting any aid. So maybe a boiler needs to be replaced because we still have the BOCES lease at that time if we extend it to 15 years. So just trying to be forward thinking on that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So skipping ahead, that would be the size project we would have then. Again, focus on 2 schools and really 1 and just a little bit of work at Minerva at that time. And again, in 2036 there, you see a K-5 project. We originally had the K-5 switch with the 6-8, but because there's more debt drop-off in the 2036 year, we can actually do a bigger project, so it's better to do more schools with that money. That was the thinking behind it. So with that, what are our next steps?
So again, it's bringing this right back to the Board of Education to talk about this further. Even if it's just re-looking at this presentation, or maybe some circumstances have changed, to continue to get some thoughts and reflections about, hey, we're going to be actually a few weeks into the strategic planning, maybe, and have some fresh data for the board to look at relative to the community's expectations and thoughts around facilities, and how relevant is this in our next strategic plan? And just by some of the energy and the head nods, I kind of think that it's going to be an important part of our next plan. And this is the exciting piece for some of our board members up here. We have a policy 5630. There will be an annual report made available to the Board of Education. And Jeremy, if you want to go over that, that list pretty well.
Yeah, so it all starts with the BCS. That's actually C on policy 5630. Quiz me, I know that letter. Superintendent and I spent some good time looking at it.
Yes.
So first step all comes from the BCS. Letter A in that policy states to the 5-year plan that goes along that we're hoping is going to be done for the fall with the work with our architects and talking with our internal stakeholders. There's also some triennial asbestos inspection reports that are part of it, and there is also some information on our building. So reviewing the type of building, the age of the building, the size of the building, and having all that information. So our goal is to put all that together, and a lot of that is going to stay consistent. Our 5-year plan, once it's created, is kind of there. And again, we're really not going to have a project. In the next 5 years, there's really one project on the docket if you look at our aid drop-off, right? So a lot of those things are going to stay consistent, but I think it's important that we always revisit that to know what's upcoming. In addition, that last bullet there, right now we address some of our BCS items through year-end spending. It's great because we can get things done. When we do that, we're leaving aid on the table. Because when you don't do items through a capital project, you don't get the building aid. We maximize BOCES aid where possible. So if we use year-end spending for the early college coaster, or we buy some Chromebooks, that all generates aid that's good to go. But when you use year-end money on parking lot maintenance, when you use it on upgrading and air conditioning, if you put that money actually aside through a transfer to capital, which the board would have to approve because it's not part of the budget. When we go out to budget, on our line item list, we have a transfer to capital for $100,000. That's our capital outlay project, the $100,000 project that we approve every year. Let's say if that line was $600,000. That's $100,000 plus $500,000. So we still do the $100,000 project, and it allows us to put $500,000 into the capital fund, not capital reserve. So it doesn't hit your target for how much money you can put in a capital reserve. You build up some money in the capital fund, then you do a project with that. So let's say if we go out every year and we do $1 million or $2 million project, we're maximizing aid because we're taking that year-end list, doing it through a capital project, which would have to get voted on, but you're maximizing aid instead of doing it through year-end money. So not something that we're suggesting we do this year or even next year, but just something to talk about. As we keep having year-end money, or even if we have money in the facilities budget, which we do every year to do parking lot sealing. If we take that and maybe do a mill and replace instead of parking lot sealing, we can get aided on that work as long as we stay in maximum cost allowance limits. And we can do that through a transfer to capital. So it's not saying not do the work, but maybe redistribute how we're doing that work through a different lens.
No, but so to do that, but how do we do that with, still have to get that voted on?
Correct. So that's
So
part.
how often would we be doing?
That would be every year.
Every year we have a capital.
Yep. So the fact that
So it sounds like the same with our bus purchases. It's just come into habit that every year.
Another
we vote.
proposition on the vote.
So the facts of the matter is that every year we do, we get the end of the year list of facility projects that we're doing, whether it's, pavement, whether it's air conditioning, we do that every year, right? And you get that list. And we use end of the year fund balance to do that. This would just be a way to say it beforehand, identify it beforehand, and then when you're in budget season, it just gives you another item that you need to talk about, which talks about investing in our facilities, maximizing aid, and it chips away at that BCS and chips away at some of those $20 million projects as we move along.
Would it have to be really specific then?
On what's that?
What we would use it on, like how specific?
We could say playgrounds.
Yeah, the proposition, we would word that the same way we do with the capital projects. We can leave it kind of generic to use at any building for
I'm just thinking of the community.
capital
and,
improvement.
Things we hear.
Yeah.
I just hate the thought of leaving money on the table, and this seems like a good way to, we know what's coming. It's not like it's a surprise every June. We know.
Couple
Well,
things,
I mean,
couple
like
things might be
where
a
it's gonna
surprise.
go. We know we're always gonna have work to do.
Yep.
Is a better way to say it.
So
So
in-
planning and having that on there. seems
So
like a good idea.
budget-wise, would that be like another, I know it's a separate proposition, it's not in the main budget, but it's just be like, if we have money left over, we would spend up to, or is it another amount put on the tax levy to be able to fund that?
Great
capital
question. You can do it one of two ways. You can either increase your expenses, and then you got to find a correlating revenue to increase, which would be taxes or state aid or something. Or we can just move money from the facilities budget to the transfer to capital line. So it's just a redistribution. You heard that a lot from me this year. Redistribution of expenses to a different line, and then we fund it through a project rather than through the facilities budget.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, the year after, we would have the aid that could
Yep.
go in as a revenue for that line?
Yeah, because right now you have the expense built into your facilities budget. So you're just moving that to a different line. It's no increase in expenses.
Okay, so it's something we already have built in, but just doing it in an aidable way.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, and again, that speaks to a larger philosophical question too about end year fund balance, right? And I think that's something that Jeremy has been trying to look at, the amount of fund balance that we have. We need to continue to look at reducing it. That's a comptroller interest, and every time we get audited. So there, it's just not like, hey, let's just keep spending and making sure that there's a surplus. We need to be stewards. And I know none of you are saying that, but those are the real questions that community members are gonna have. And you try to balance it by being smart, like MC was just saying about not leaving money on the table.
I think of we often have, we make sure we always budget a buffer in case we have special education needs, for example.
You got it.
And so that money would not be in that facilities line, that would be somewhere else. And that's something that sometimes contributes to our end of the year balance. And so then but that's not something we'd then be able to put into that capital fund because we didn't plan on it from the beginning.
Yeah, in essence, you would have to move that money to the transfer to capital line to get it in the capital fund.
Okay.
But then you wouldn't use that until you finish the year well.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't compromise student programming.
100%.
That's a fair
Well, I mean,
question.
is it just is any of that able to be moved, or
Yes,
we'd
it
have
can
to
be
know
transferred.
from the beginning? Okay, that
It
could
can
be transferred
And you guys,
without
the
the vote.
board would have a say in that transfer.
Okay.
It looks like for the pool, this is pretty much what I'll call the traditional or standard revenue streams that we're using for this. Being a swim team parent, I sometimes get questions around grant money that might be available through various programs. Do we know if we're eligible at all for any grant money?
There was a grant, I think it was called Swim or Fast. I can't remember which one, Swim.
Yeah.
Something I want to look into, you have to spend it in a certain amount of time. So because we knew that this project wouldn't take place, our next project wouldn't take place until 2029, getting approval on it now, we wouldn't be able to see the benefits of it.
Okay, so
And it's
nothing's
not-
reflected on that here, but it's something that we always look at.
And that wouldn't cover the whole pool. I think that would cover, I want to say 10 million, if I'm ringing a bell. I think
I'll
that's
take
what
10
we
million.
saw. And then,
Jeremy,
Yep.
if we got like a grant or a donor or like some,
Stuck
Yeah.
there.
or anything like that, like external money outside of that, does that affect any kind of aid, or is that like that doesn't hurt, like wouldn't come back to bite us on the back end with like state aid or anything?
no, we would restructure our debt drop-off to account for that, and we would just use less money in the capital reserve if we have that donor.
I would love
You know someone?
to know exactly what I was going to say.
If I
Santa,
did.
there's a Santa Claus.
I will say this, if they donate more than 75 million, yes, it will affect that.
Well, we'll tell them to keep it.
Keep it low, keep it low.
I think the exciting thing about this project, and I don't want to speak for the board, but it's just getting it down and then continuing to process it and putting it on paper and have it live somewhere. So, we could speak to it and report out on it. And I really also appreciate the end of the year conversation about potential projects. I know Aaron for the past couple of years has been asking about that and the benefits of that, but you bringing it forward and seeing how that works, I think those are really interesting conversations for the board to have, because there are some real conversations that impact our community and our kids when it comes to that conversation. So,
Well, and I think it's important to obviously put this out there and just see what the community thinks, given the tough decisions we've had to make this past year, is where on the priority list are these projects and where they want us to focus. So.
Absolutely.
Well, and I appreciate, just for myself, that kind of baseline of $5 million or $5 million a year to get to no tax impact. Like that's, just a nice tangible round number to kind of work around. Like, okay, that's kind of a goal, whether it's our goal or the goal depends on a lot of things, but as a kind of number to shoot for and have in our head, I think that's super helpful to have.
Yeah. Awesome.
I know that if you just look at that pool, right? The lifespan or the useful life. It's a 1970s pool, so there's lots that go into it. I know we talked about communities' interests and communities, so there's lots of passions around it. There's lots of use that we get out of it, and lots of use that we don't get out of it because it doesn't meet standards too. So, I'm saying that for our community out there to let them know that we all hear that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks. Okay. So up next, I need a motion that the Board of Education enter into executive session for matters pertaining to the 4 items listed below. And if you're listening at home, we will just reconvene to adjourn, and then we will be back at 7 for our business meeting.
So
Second. Brian, Mary Caitlin, all in favor? Aye. Okay.